So I'm thinking, boy, we're one of 10 spots. No, there's something we want to say. Yeah.
Didn't forget, just not done.
Okay. It's not on there?
Hello, Michael.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I missed this. This was just in there.
What they're asking. Because they want to know what America is all about. I don't mind. I don't mind giving my.
Right, but it's not and children, yes. Right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Chief, how are you?
And tonight and last Tuesday.
Because this is what I wanted to discuss. Because I thought, why miss the
I
opportunity?
just got texted.
And let's see if there's anything that we think is a positive.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, hey, it's time. Everyone ready? Oh, it's time. We're us all sitting here chatting. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order. May we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Bennett,
I'm present.
Commissioner Oakland. Yes. Commissioner Friedman,
Present.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Present.
Motion passes.
It'll be good.
Let's start around.
You're doing good.
So it's got short-term syndrome,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what? We have a moment of silence. No more laughing. Thank you very much, Ms. Rice, for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first order, as usual, for the commission are consent items. Is there a motion from the commission on consent items?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we pass consent items A and B.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
So a motion by Commissioner Friedman, second by Commissioner Hoagland. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Oakland. Yes. Commissioner Friedman.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Motion passes. Tonight, we do have one proclamation. There's a proclamation regarding keeping the lights on and after school in Livingston. And it states as such: whereas the city of Livingston stands firmly committed to quality after-school programs and opportunities because they provide safe, challenging, and engaging learning experiences that help children develop social, emotional, physical, and academic skills, supporting work families by ensuring their children are safe and productive after the regular school day ends, build stronger communities by involving students, parents, business leaders, and adult volunteers in the lives of young people, thereby promoting positive relationships among youth, families, and adults. Whereas Links for Learning has provided significant leadership in the area of community involvement in the education of, and well-being of our youth, grounded in the principle that quality after-school programs are key to helping our children become successful adults. Whereas Lights On After School, the national celebration of after-school programs held this year on October 26, 2017, promotes the importance of quality after-school programs in the lives of children, families, and communities. Whereas more than 28 million children in the U.S. have parents who work outside the home, and 15.1 million children have no place to go after school, whereas many after-school programs across the country are facing funding shortfalls so severe that they are being forced to close their doors and turn off the lights. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Livingston urges the citizens of Livingston to ensure that every child has access to a safe, engaging place where the lights are on after school. Now, therefore, I, James Bennett, Chairperson of the Livingston City Commission, do hereby proclaim October 26, 2017 to be Lights On After School Day, and am committed to innovative after-school programs and activities that ensure that the lights stay on and the doors stay open for all children after school. So we do have representatives from Links tonight to also give us a little more information about the programs. And so I'd like to invite Margie, Margaret, and Tara?
Terry Hart.
Terry, okay, I'll get it. Okay, to come up to the microphone and give us any additional information you'd like to share with us tonight.
Thank you.
And just for the benefit of those who may not be able to hear you back, try to use the microphone.
Oh, okay.
All right. Just pull it to you. Just slide it right up.
So I'm Terry Hartley. I am the program director of Links for Learning. I've been with Links since it started in 1999. We are currently serving 108 children after school this fall, and 46% of them are low-income families. So our funding comes, a third of it comes from the 21st Century Grant, which is a federal grant, and we've just gotten that reinstated in the federal budget, so we're hoping that will pass. But it's significant to our program. If we didn't have that funding, our program would diminish greatly, and we would be able to serve the working families in Livingston. So this event is put on by the National After School Alliance. It's sponsored by them, and just to bring awareness of the importance for after-school programs and summer programs in communities for working families. And we would like to invite all of you guys to come. It's at Eastside in the gym on October 26th. It is 5 o'clock?
5 to 6:30.
5 to 6:30. Okay. And we will have lots of different, we'll have dinner, we'll have lots of different STEM activities, science, technology, engineering, and math activities for the children and for the adults to participate in. And we really would appreciate, or do appreciate, your support and awareness of this, after school.
Do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Well, you had advised me before the meeting that you'd like to get a picture.
Would that be possible?
Yeah. Where would you like to do that? On Livingston Peak?
Yes, so, right there. Right over there, how you be okay?
Yeah. Or we can stand right in front of the flags.
And do you want to sign this really quick?
Sure.
Thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us.
Would you like to get the entire commission?
Absolutely, that would be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little camera shy, so yeah, it'd be nice to have some support up there. Oh, you do? Okay.
Right. So proclamation for after school.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
The tall people on the back.
All people in the back.
Flags.
That's
No.
nice. There we go. Yay. Sure.
Wanna take another one? Yeah, we waited quite a while there.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the support.
Oh, you're welcome. I think Commissioner Hoagland has another comment to make on this program.
I just want to state, as someone who had family, our kids are in fifth grade, they don't go to Lynx, but I can say this program saved me. As a parent who didn't know what to do when you have younger kids, and what, as far as where will they go after school, how do you pay for it, how do you take care of it, I have to say it was a phenomenal chance for them to get into this program, and I love this group and these people, so I wanted to make sure you knew that.
Anyone else? At least you can feel the love before you have to go.
Hopefully we will see you there too.
Yeah. Well, that sounds fun. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. You guys have a great evening.
You as well.
All right. So tonight we do have one public hearing, and it's regarding resolution number 4760, which is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending the budget for fiscal year 2016-2017 by making appropriation adjustments in the amount of $1,016,950 and revenue adjustments in the amount of $608,550. Mr. Cardos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a continuation from last week. This budget resolution does clear up our end of year adjustments we need to make in different funds. As stated and shown where the either unanticipated revenues or unbudgeted revenues that cover the additional expenses, and many of the additional expenses were covered by additional revenues that were also unexpected. It's open for questions.
All right. Well, this is a public hearing. So this public hearing is now open regarding budget adjustments and resolution number 4760. So if there's any public who would like to comment, ask questions, get any clarification, now is your time. Any public comment? Public comment on resolution number 4760. Last call, resolution 4760, public comment. Hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. At this point, if there is a motion from the commission, this would be the time to provide it.
I make a motion we pass resolution 4760.
Is there a second?
I'll second resolution 4760.
So there is a motion by Commissioner Friedman and a second by Commissioner Schwartz. Is there any commission clarification, questions, any last moment points to make? Seeing none, may we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes?
Commissioner Hoagland,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Sanders, 4.
Motion passes. Tonight, there are no ordinances. There is one resolution, and that is resolution number 4759, the resolution relating to up to $5 million sewer improvement revenue bond anticipation note, DNRC Water Pollution Control State Revolving Loan Program. Series 2017, authorizing the issuance thereof and fixing the terms and conditions of the bond anticipation note. Mr. Cardis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution authorizes the state revolving fund to issue us a bond anticipation note. That is a funding mechanism that basically allows us to draw on that note until it reaches the full $5 million, at which point this will be repaid by the USDA Rural Development Loan. USDA in their policies does not pay as you go on a construction project. They wait until you use the entire $5 million amount, and then they will reimburse whatever mechanism you use. It's actually part of the conditional agreement that we made with USDA when we approved using their funding, and they use the SRF in many of their projects. So this is just a standard funding mechanism to get to the point where we can use the USDA funds.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there any commission discussion regarding resolution number 4759? Commissioner Schwartz.
Thanks for the clarification on that. On that bond, how it all works. Wasn't quite aware of it. Didn't ask for it, but I appreciate it.
You could probably thank Commissioner Sanford.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sorry, Carly.
Thank you for your diligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Sanford.
So if I may, I just wanted to thoroughly understand, so, I didn't, he responded to all of you, so,
Yes.
but anyway, we did continue our discussion prior to the meeting, just for further clarification, but, in the layman's terms, he described it to me as a construction loan, as if you were building your home, and then moving on to the mortgage after completion, so, I now understand the funding mechanism and its functionality. So thank you for the patience and the explanation.
Any other points of clarification from the commission? Are there any public comments on resolution 4759? Public comments? Is there a motion from the commission on resolution 4759?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 4759.
Second. So there's a motion by Commissioner Schwartz and a second by Commissioner Friedman. We have had discussion. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Sanford,
Motion passes. Moving on to our action items. Our first action item is Wind Rider Transit Bus request for designated bus stops. Page 90, Mr. Cardis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This request was made in the last meeting, if you remember. The staff went back and looked at it and has come up with two recommendations. If you look at the map provided on page 90, you'll see down in the left-hand corner, it's a little hard to see in a black and white copy. But there's a white line there right in front of the library, right near the bulb out, which works out exceptionally well, so it's a pretty safe place. That is the recommended stop near the library. And then if you go on to the next page, there's actually two recommended spots on this page. Again, the black and white's not great to see, but if you can see on,
Is it possible to get it projected on the screen? Oh, great. There we go. So,
Oh, yeah, this would be better. I even on my screen. Okay.
so you can,
is that,
This line right here by the library, right?
that is the line right there by the
Excellent.
library,
Okay.
directly in front of the library by the bulb out. And
Or the return on 3rd Street.
yeah, that should be
Oh,
on,
wait.
that's on, should be on Lewis.
Yeah, that's where we wanted it.
Yes.
On Lewis, yeah, where the old driveway for the coal chute.
Right, so this is the one close, this is now the next one, this is the one close to the senior center. There's, the recommended position is right there on the bottom left-hand part of the screen. You can see the white line next to the orange line, right there. That is directly in front of the parking lot. That's just behind the Angel Line parking space. So it's right along the curb there where the parking lot is. The only downside to this position is it is close to the alley, and while the bus is there, it may block some of the view for traffic down the alley. which was pointed out in the traffic study.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's a contradiction to the study.
Yes.
Okay.
But our thought process on this is not a permanent parking spot. They should only be there for a few minutes at a time. So the risk associated with that is less. However, if that risk isn't acceptable, the other two options are directly on Main next to the senior center, or if can you scroll down any?
Is it by the parking lot?
There you go. And you see the blue and the white line just below the old Dodge dealership there, right in the center, bottom left of the screen.
What is that one on Second Street across from the laundry place?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right there, that white. So that's the old Dodge dealership. There is a handicap parking spot there that's no longer used, so we could turn that actually into a bus loading zone. It's not as accessible for the senior center, which is our main concern there. That's still a long ways for residents from the senior center to walk. So we still recommend, even with the increased risk to the alley, the location right there, closer to the senior center next to the parking lot.
And why is the one on Main not applicable?
Well, the one is also leaves Main Street free for parking. We know that parking is a premium on Main, leaves that spot open for businesses that are located there, while still allowing easy access from residents from the senior center. So we tried to balance the needs of the businesses versus the seniors, and that was the best that we could. There are some downsides, but we thought overall it was the best for all parties involved.
Commissioner Hoagland.
So, Mike, is it on the left side? If you go down the alley, is it on the left side or the right side of the alley?
It's on the.
It's on the west side.
It's on the senior center,
Senior center.
right in front of Rainbow Enterprise.
No,
It's-
Alright.
Across
Right in
from
front of
CHP.
It's actually not, it's actually right there, it's actually right in front of the empty lot that's next to the senior center.
No, but the other one.
So the alley is right here, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the one on near the old Dodge dealership or the one on the?
The one up top.
One
Right,
up there,
senior
one
center.
on Lewis.
The one on Lewis.
The one on Lewis is, do you know
One
what's
on
in front
Lewis
of?
is right
it's
here,
it's west of the alley.
and that's the preferred spot.
Well,
Not
you know,
east.
the curb's painted yellow there, so we really weren't taking another spot.
Well, it's painted
Taking
white.
a spot.
It's a loading zone, isn't it? in front of
Not
Rainbow?
that one, no. That would be on the east
Yes.
side.
Well, wait, isn't this where the food resource center is?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the side where the loading zone is.
Oh, I
and-
see.
And that's really the culprit of why it showed up in the traffic study.
Okay.
So we could look at relocating this loading zone right here,
Right.
get a little more sight distance for.
And because the alley's going one way well, it isn't one,
Right, it's one way.
it is one way.
Yeah.
Which is another possibility of making it one way,
Right.
the opposite way.
Commissioner Sandberg.
So I obviously have no idea what I was talking about. So the one with the red, that's Lewis Street.
Yes,
Oh, I'm
that's the
sorry,
top.
I thought that was Main.
No.
That's Lewis Street, so we're looking north.
Yes.
Okay, I've got you.
No.
So,
Yeah, just to make it clear, it's oriented different than it is in the packet, so that makes it.
Yeah.
So-
So turn your packet sideways.
yeah, we're pretending we can see it on the packet.
Okay.
So that spot there, that's back,
Yeah.
back, and it's not covered, it's
There's a
not,
fire hydrant there, and we paint the curb 10 foot off the fire hydrant,
Right.
and there's 21 feet of curb, just enough for the length of the van that Kristen had.
Well, that'd be perfect, because the idea is to get it close to senior center, closer to food resource center and downtown. So,
and it's only gonna be there for a couple minutes.
It should be, I think the average stop time is like 5 minutes.
5 to 6 minutes.
yeah.
3 minutes, even better.
The route goes, what's the time on the full route? Do you remember, Shannon?
4 times a day.
Kristen's here, so.
Oh, Kristen,
she
come
has
on
a-
up, Kristen. Answer these tough questions.
I remember those routes. Oh, I guess I have to say my name.
Yes, state your name and address for the record.
Kristen Galbraith at 108 North Second. The routes on those maps are not set in stone yet, but very close. Those fixed routes are 6 times a day. generally 1 hour, 20 minutes per mixed route. 3 minutes maximum probably per stop.
And 4 times a day, right?
6.
Oh, 6.
So 18 to 20 minutes a day.
Commissioner Sandberg?
So will the spaces be documented loading only, or will they be available for parking? I mean, I think it would be difficult to allow parking, and you never know when the bus is gonna quite show up, so,
So this, exactly, and this particular space absolutely will be reserved for the bus,
okay.
and that's because of the safety concerns of the alley. There's still some debate on the library one, because that's a pretty good spot for people to park, with good access, but it is difficult because you can't guarantee that if someone parks, they're gonna be out of the way by the time the bus comes in.
Right.
So the initial thought is that it will be reserved for the bus at all times.
And how do you make that final determination? Is that between you and the library, or?
We'll talk to the library, but eventually this is presented to you as our recommendation. If you accept it, then we'll have to actually go back and do the parking ordinance itself. And that'll come before you for its official designation as a parking spot. at that point.
And could we, I would just like to hear what the feedback of the library was as well, when we come to that point.
We can either have them come to the meeting or give us a written statement on what they.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Kristen, anything to add to that? You obviously went over this with the city, and you like those 2 spots?
For ease for our customers that are, or I guess our riders that are getting on and off, those are 2 good locations downtown. We are trying to eliminate any left-hand turns, especially at intersections with no stop signs. So for us to make rights all the time also helps us out. For Shannon's information, the bus is going to be 24 feet long, and it will have a bike rack on the back. So
So 36 feet.
yeah.
Yeah. Big lots. Is there anything else for Kristen? Any more questions for clarification? Good. Thank you very much, Kristen. Appreciate it. So you're looking for an approval to move forward to come back with a change of
Bring actual ordinance before the commission.
Okay. So is there such a motion from the commission?
I will make that motion to approve action item A.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. I did forget to ask if there was any public comment. Is there any public comment on those parts? Oh, one more. Okay, we're just up here.
We were also hoping that the city and Sharon's crew would paint the areas and then put up the signs that we could provide, given his specs or signage for the area. You know, small Wind Rider bus stop sign. That's part of that.
Well, you can work that out with administration, and if they have it in their budget, I'm sure they'll work with you.
We were already planning on, actually, we were
Already
planning on buying
planning
the
on
signs ourselves, so that's even bonus.
Right, any other public comment? All right, we do have a motion and a second. May we have roll call, please? Oh, Commissioner Sandberg.
Back on the library issue, and I don't have the routes in front of me, so I'm sorry, but just thinking again, because parking is such a prime downtown, especially during the summer. I'm wondering if it would be possible to incorporate something on the side where the book drop is, since that space is not usable for parking either, since it's a temporary, 5 minutes during the day. It would require making a right turn, and I'm not sure where the next stop is after that, but that might be some sort of consideration that would maybe appeal to all entities, since I just throwing it out there.
Because it doesn't take up a parking space.
Right, because they have that space they use for the book drops, and they have the canisters there. And I don't know if there's a way safely to incorporate a bus loading and Enzo loading in the same area.
We'll take a look at it and bring it back with the recommendations.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Can I direct my question to Mr. Holmes? Via Mr. Kelly.
But
We're proposing to have that bus stop. There's a driveway there. Isn't that painted yellow now?
It is, we're actually gonna clean all that out.
Okay, there's no parking there now anyway.
It's not a typical parking area.
Right.
With that approach and lay down curbs.
Right.
So, and then you have the exit for the post office
Right.
parking lot there as well, so.
So it's not really considered parking space per se right now.
No.
Okay. I just wanted clarification on that because
Yep.
we looked at that pretty close.
It's, and I'll be honest, to Commissioner Sandberg's credit, I mean, we didn't really look at Second Street at all. We were trying to make it work right there on calendar, which was what the group requested. And it seemed like it would work, it would clean up the parking for that section of calendar anyway, make it more safe.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any other comment on this? Okay, we do have a motion in a second. May we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Holford,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Four. Motion passes. Our second action item of the evening is to discuss Huffington Post road trip to stop in Livingston, Montana on October 16th. And possible discussion of topics of interest. It's kind of my thing. I got an email from, I thought all the commissioners got an email from the Huffington Post indicating that they were going to be here in Livingston on a tour, a 20 location stop tour with the idea of trying to give a better face to journalism, since they are stating that it's at an all-time low. And wanted to just ask the commission if there was anything that they thought we would like to do as a whole, or request of the administration, or suggest as far as they're going to be here. They're going to be here for a day. They're going to be probably filming and interviewing. And would there be anything that we'd like to suggest or present? The only other thing I had that was on that same day, did I give that to you? Was that there's going to be a candidate forum that day. So maybe that would be something of interest for them. Anyway, just throwing it out here for discussion. If we decide to do nothing, that's fine. I just thought we would have the opportunity to do something if we wanted to. Commissioner Holman.
So because we are nonpartisan, I know that's the concern that we have talked about, but on the other hand, I like their questions that were just some examples of what does a national audience not understand about your city. I think we can be relatively nonpartisan about that, just what we might want to promote. What's the most underreported story affecting your residents today, or it could be what's our biggest want or need, underpass, overpass. What makes you most proud of your constituents? I think those are all things that are pretty benign, and I feel comfortable in supporting. And anything to sell our community and to get people out there, so, or to hear about us, I should say. So, just my feedback.
Any other thoughts from the commission at all? Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes, I have my hand up.
Oh, you look like you wanted to say something though.
No, yeah, as long as we prove this in a nonpartisan fashion, I absolutely would like to invite them and say my piece, perhaps. Okay. And I think candidates forum might be maybe eye-opening.
What?
The candidates forum, inviting them to that might be beneficial.
Oh, that might be.
And see the civility that we have, perhaps. In city politics, that's perhaps maybe in Washington. Stuff like that. Are you?
Is there any public comment on this issue? If you have some, come on up.
There's
And as usual, state your name and address for the record and sign in on the book there. And it looks like we need a pen. Do we have a pen?
on my.
Okay, there we go.
Hi, Margot Kidder, 315 West Lewis. I didn't know this was going to come up, but I thought I could offer you some tips because I've been a journalist and I've been on the other end of it as an actor. They're not going to want a pretty little story. They're going to try and find out about G40, punching the guy. They're going to want something substantive. So if you give them a theatrical kind of forum as opposed to nicey sweet, everybody loves everybody, you'll get a good story. They won't write the nicey sweet story that we all would love them to write because we all love towns so much. So I would make sure somebody's with them all the time and just pick different people in the community with different views that they want to talk to. Make sure they don't write us off as all, rednecks, and which they're going to want to do. They're going to want to write off Montana, as we always are, as a bunch of ignorant rednecks. And if there ever was a state with political diversity, it's ours. And I think that's something we should push rather than, or try to push. They'll have their own agendas rather than, here's a nice community forum we're all nice to each other. That was just a little comment. That won't work.
All right, well, thank you very much, Marco.
I'm here for something else, so
Okay, well, you already signed in then.
there you go.
Mr. Sandberg,
Question to Gerald, what page were those questions you were reading?
Right at the bottom,
Missing?
15.
page 94. Oh, Leslie.
Leslie Flywell, Executive Director of the Chamber and CVB Convention and Visitors Bureau, 303 East Park Street. So I agree with Margot. We actually were discussing this just today at the Department of Commerce. And the cities that are listed that they are visiting on this particular road trip, there's a reason why Livingston is standing out. I don't know if you remember, we recently had the congressman here. We've got the state secretary coming. We have a senator that's been here. We are in the, we're out there in the wind. Livingston, Montana is. And we always are working extremely hard to make that happen, and all in a good way. At this time, with the national news not being that great, and the election, and everybody picking two sides, you have to be extremely careful with them. We were told about this today, that they're looking for these great little towns that were painting a really wonderful picture, which we have as a community. And our marketing is incredible. We're up 6 to 12% across Livingston and Park County, just visitors alone. I just caution you to really, honestly, my opinion is the forum would not be a great one for that type of stance. But just caution you about having them come here for that particular reason. I think it would be, not a great time for them to come and, maybe take the long time for them in Park County. We got a great rollout that's coming out that I already presented to you all, that we're actually going international with our marketing. Our plan, I'm meeting with Michael Carderas tomorrow morning to show him the new marketing plan. And I think that if we have a bad press at the same time that we're rolling out this international marketing plan, I think it just kind of would be, So I just ask you, please, think twice about what you have them involved in. And like she said, absolutely having somebody with them at all times throughout the day and knowing how to put your foot down and intervene when something starts to go askew. And also remembering to the bipartisan, because they'll pull you in one direction. But that is what I'm just passing on from my meeting today with the office tourism.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to mention is that they're coming here. We didn't invite them. They're going to be here. And we're not we're not there to monitor them. That's not our role. They're coming here as reporters to do their job. And whatever that might be, they're gonna do it whether we want them to or not. I mean, we don't have any regulation that keeps a news agency out of Livingston, do we?
No, we don't.
We don't. So we're not controlling the event. All this discussion here tonight was that they did reach out to the Livingston City Commission, and I don't know if the administration got an email or not, to see if there was anything that we wanted to, I'm not sure if it was really present, but anything that we would like to add to the discussion. And if we did, great. If we choose not to, that's fine as well. But whatever their motivations, I'm only suggesting that their motivations are as they're stating here, because if it's not, then they're not gonna, if part of their motivation is that they're trying to better the perception of journalism in the United States this time, and then they come here and do the opposite of what they're doing, then they've kind of shot themselves in the foot. The suggestion I had was, is there something where we can put our best foot forward? And if not going to the candidate forum would be it, or we're just brainstorming here. We didn't really sit down and discuss this before this moment. So that's the idea, but I do appreciate everyone's input. But if they come here and do the opposite of what they're telling us they're going to do, they're just going to dig themselves into a deeper hole, I would think. If they're trying to get out of a hole, they're going to be deeper. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Laura McCarthy-Koda. I'm the Executive Director of the Livingston Depot. And I wasn't planning on speaking on this tonight, but I figured I would add some clarification. So the Huffington Post, they will be coming to Livingston, and they'll be holding what they're calling an activation, where if anybody has seen a StoryCorps bus, the NPR StoryCorps where they interview people, you're gonna have a charter bus with a recording studio inside. If you've seen, I encourage you to look up on their website some of their previous sites that they've been to. So they'll be holding the activation on October 16th at the Depot Center. They're planning on having it outside. We'll see how the weather cooperates. And they'll be inviting citizens to come and interview them with some of these benign questions. Why did you move to Livingston? What do you love about Livingston? How long, were you born and raised here, or are you a transplant? And on their website, you can see some of the interviews that they've conducted in other cities across the country. So I don't believe that they're going political, but they're also choosing some of the discussion topics that have to do with, that are poignant to different areas. So they kicked off the tour in St. Louis, and they had a forum at the end of the day where it was talking about 3 years after Ferguson, and bringing people from both sides together and trying to have a more civil and bipartisan discussion about some of these national issues. So I don't think that they've chosen a topic for Livingston yet, but maybe it would be something about the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, or something that is along those lines, that's pertinent to us, that as you folks have mentioned, identifies us and why we're proud of this area. So just to give some clarification, and I believe that the activation part at the depot is open to anyone. So whether that is anyone from the public walking by the street, or any of you are welcome to show up.
And when you say activation, what's that mean?
I am not quite sure. I think it's their term. So it is, they will have booths, and they will have a recording studio, and they will be inviting citizens, you folks, anyone who is around, to come introduce themselves and be interviewed, both via video and audio, and you can see it's that type of thing. Just in terms of engaging the public, I think is what it is.
All right, well, thank you for that clarification, appreciate that. Is there any other public comment? Anyone else would like to weigh in on this? Any other commission comment? So probably, it really doesn't sound like, we do anything as a commission, or anyone want to do something individual, administration, city itself. Leave it at that? All right, sounds good. Let's move on to the next topic of discussion, which is transportation study update. Mr. Carduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the transportation study update is completed. This is the finalized version. It is an update to the 2000 study. It is available for your reading pleasure. There is a series of recommendations in this. There are two purposes for bringing this before you tonight. The first is just to have you vote to accept it as a completed document to add to the library, which doesn't mean that you agree with it, just that they have completed their due diligence and their study is considered complete. It becomes one of the planning documents that we have. The other topic that I would like you to address is there is a recommendation on Main Street, which, if we decided to go that route, the most efficient way to do it would be to include it in the downtown streets PER. So I would like to have TD&H look at that and see if they could give us a cost estimate on what it would take to fulfill the recommendations in this traffic study report as a secondary option to downtown PER to go out to bid this winter.
So you're looking for two things.
Two things, yes. One is just a vote to accept it.
And then another direction to direct the administration to engage TD&H and what it would cost us to integrate the recommendations from Main Street.
Yes, into the downtown streets. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a formal vote, but it is just something I would like
Some consensus, correct?
some consensus on before I start spending money to do things.
Perfect, sounds good. All right, well, why don't we invite the public? I know there's several members of the public who wanted to comment on this issue.
Yes, before we start, we do have Keith here, he can answer questions, as well as, Bob
Marvin.
Yeah, Bob Marvin, who actually did most of the study. So if we have questions directed at them, please feel free to bring them up and they can answer any in-depth questions you have on
Well,
the study itself.
why don't we get the public's input, because I know some people have some concerns, and then the gentleman who did the study can maybe clarify some of the concerns. Is that okay, Commissioner Sandberg? Yes.
Can I just get a little bit of clarification on the process and the study itself before we?
Sure.
So in reading it, I'll just say I was disappointed to see that the study was conducted in the lowest travel months of the year. I don't think that really gives us an accurate assessment of what really happens in the city during May through September. There were some disclosures in the document stating, we realize it's low activity and we can use a multiplier to kind of anticipate, but I think there's a completely different dynamic in the summer is you have more non-local drivers. And I think that's a huge impact through your community. I guess that's just a concern of mine. The second study we've done, I didn't review the first one, so I'm not sure what's different with this one from the other, but we sure seem to spend a lot of money on studies that may or may not give us different information than the first time around. But my concerns I have during the summer is the influx of population, especially out of town people who are not used to our roads and navigating them. And things that I've noticed that through this study, there's a lot of stop sign projections, some turn lanes, a few stoplights. But I was thinking of some simple solutions that no left turns onto main thoroughfares. So, for instance, Park Street, no left turns on or off. And I'm no expert, so I'm not here to say if that's a good idea or not. But I don't see any of that type of information in this study. So, yeah, I guess it just, and to be blunt, it wasn't quite as thorough as I expected. So, I mean, there's a lot of information, but not a lot of detail pertaining to us. So, but I guess for the public, I think it's important for them to know that the study was done. What was it, November through January? That's when the data was collected.
The actual study was done November through January. However, there was additional, and Bob can address all this, but there was
Okay.
additional counts taken later at other times of the year that were then used to figure out the calculations. So there were additional measurements taken that were used to do the projections. But I'll let him explain in detail because I'm not the traffic study.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I would like to invite the public first, though, to voice your concerns. So if there's anyone in the public that wants to discuss the traffic study, please come up. Just state your name and address for the record. This will get you out of here sooner, Jack. This will get you out of here sooner.
Jack Luther, 104 South Fifth Street, Livingston. I have not seen the study. The only thing I know about it is what I read in the paper the other night, which prompted me to come, talking about making Second Street and Main Street one-way streets. And putting a stoplight up at Second Street. I'm aware that something needs to be done at Second and Park Street. I'm involved with the yellow bus, the historic tours there. So during the summer, I make up to 6 left turns on Park Street off Second Street. I understand that could be a little bit hazardous. I'm assuming that you're planning on making Second Street one way going north and Main Street one way going south. My recommendation, for what it's worth, would be to, at the Second Park, leave Second Street two-way street, make it a right turn only on the park. That would get away from not having to make a left turn on the park and crossing that lane of traffic. You've already got a stoplight at B Street. If you want to make a one-way going north, why not use B Street? It's already got a stoplight there. I don't have any problem with making Main Street one way going south. I think that if you increase the diagonal parking along there, it's certainly going to benefit the businesses there with the increase in parking. I just have a problem with having another stoplight on Park Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it.
All right, signed in, Leslie Feigl, 303 East Park Street, Chamber of Commerce. So I did not know about the study either, and looking at it from the tourism aspect, it's an over $3 billion industry in the state of Montana and Livingston alone. It's over $30,000 a year to market to these people to come here. This year's we're on an increase every year for the last 5 years. I think that if we could have some sort of discussion on that topic of the tourism alone coming here, how it would impact them. There's an industry that is, it's called ITRR, that we work with closely through the Office of Tourism on this very thing, and it changing streets to a small town. Let me back up. But people come here for iconic Main Street, for our historic value, and I know a lot of people say, historic, but people come here from all over the world to see our iconic downtown streets. And I think that if we could maybe take a look at what the possible impact would be if we were to do this on on these particular businesses and streets, especially having such a successful year this year. I would enjoy being able to be a part of that conversation. And I can also have ITRR come in and give their reports on these small towns that have these iconic small towns like Livingston, Harlowtown, just, across the state. Impacts on changing their downtown street areas. Some people have even blocked off their downtown streets and they're all walking only. So, and that's, proven one way or the other. So again, I'm just asking if we could maybe expand the conversation on this. So I could kind of see what the whole plan is. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
And just a couple things for clarification. There isn't a plan, there's only a study. So these are all recommendations. None of them are adopted. By us voting on it tonight, we don't adopt any of these things. These are all just recommendations that we can look at. And if we agree with the recommendations, we then can rank order and figure out how to pay for them. Because that's the other part of it, none of it's free. As far as the one-way goes, I just want to clarify, I think that's going to be a big topic of discussion. We're actually not recommending any northbound one-way streets. Looking at it, it kind of was a better flow to be able for people to get out both directions. If you're coming from the school or the fairgrounds, people could then turn left or right once they hit the one-way part of Main and exit north, whichever way they wanted to down Second would be. So there is no recommendation for a northbound one-way street. However, the recommendation for the stoplight, if that helps you're concerned, and that still stands as far as being able to control that intersection at Second and Park. So just a couple clarifications on recommendations that will come. We're not even that far yet. And the fact that there is no plan, none of this is going in. My only request is to be able to figure out what it would cost. Because we can't really even recommend it up or down until we know what it would cost in the current construction project. Because it doesn't make sense to finish the downtown street PDR and then go back and look at adding things into Main Street. So we just wanted to make sure that we looked at it all at the same time. Because if you're going to do it, at least might as well do it for the most efficient cost we can. Thanks very much.
Is there any other public comment?
I just wanted
Yeah,
to
of course.
offer some thanks.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank MDT. They loaned us the Mile Vision cameras. Matt Whitman put every one of the 33 out. So I want to thank him as well. And the data that we were able to acquire with those cameras was excellent. So really appreciate that. We have a lot of traffic data intersections that we can continue to look. Not every intersection was evaluated in this study, but we have the data that if we need to look at it, we have that data available. Also want to thank Keith and Bob for doing the report. But I do want to bring to everybody's attention, B Street signal is due to be upgraded through MDT next year in 2018. They are doing a citywide resignaling project. They've already changed all the pet crossing times from Love's Lane all the way to B Street. But B Street signal is going to see a significant upgrade in 2018. There's also going to be modifications to the 5th Street intersection as well, and making sure that it's going to be synced with the B Street signal during times where the tracks are, 5th Street is closed due to train traffic. The other thing is the traffic signal at 2nd and Park has been in discussion in this community for a long time. It's actually made it to the point where the MDT did a design for the project, and I don't have the history on this, but there were a few local business owners and businesses in the downtown that were not happy with that, and MDT swept it under the rug. We as an administration have asked them to reevaluate that traffic light at 2nd Street. And if you look at the downtown PER study that TDH did, that's the reason why that 2nd Street corridor from Calendar to Park is one of the last sections of the downtown we're going to be fixing up, so we can, as a community, can look at seeing what the most viable option for that intersection is. So a lot of the things have been taken into consideration. I just wanted to give everybody a little update before Bob and Keith get up to the podium.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sure.
So, Park Street is commercial, is a highway, right?
It is.
So, state highway, so where what's the delineation between, what the state wants to do, what we want to do? Who has the ultimate say then? Is it the state?
Well, we meet with the MDT representatives quarterly at the Transportation Coordinating Committee meetings. And we as a municipality can request certain projects. And it typically is a long-term project if it's going to be administered and paid for, designed by MDT. And that's in probably 6 to 7 years. There are other projects on our urban routes that we can request that if we went to design and fund, but we still need to get their permission and then do their review process. So as far as the jurisdiction of the Second Street, you know, MDT's right away ends right basically on the building fronts of all the businesses along Park Street.
But they do have the
And so is it their responsibility then to monitor, to monitor the Park Street for potential areas of concern? Or do they leave that up to the city to find them? I mean, if they own it, should they not be performing their own analysis of traffic trouble spots on Park Street and taking care of them?
What they're doing with B Street.
They do that, but also what they don't really consider is how what's happening on Park Street correlates to what's happening in the rest of your town. They look at it from a very corridor standpoint, like this is our corridor, this is what's happening here. So when you have other things in your community that are, you know, that are impacted by Park, they're just looking at Park. Does that make sense? So,
right.
So when we're looking at these kinds of things, we need to, we look at it as globally Livingston, you know, and that's part of the corridor that goes through Livingston. So how does that impact the rest of our town? Does that make sense?
And so they're willing to, instead of coming in and making a declaration that we see this as a trouble spot, we're going to stick up a stoplight, they work with the communities to determine what's the overall best outcome for the community.
With the Second Street light, that's the approach that they want to take. They're willing to take the project on and put it through their system and pay for it, but they want it to be a collaborative effort.
Okay.
And since we failed at that the initial time, I think we're a lot more sensitive to make it a public process.
Okay.
And I would just like to add, the TCC has been working exceptionally well. They've been very helpful. You can see it on the Geyser Street project on the 88 Downtown Park. They've been very responsive to our requests and have done a great job of considering our needs when they're looking at the route. So they've been actually really good partners.
Great, thank you. I was just seeking the clarification on where those lines are. Yeah, so thank you.
So if I might add, I mean, there again, I second what Michael said. Our relationship with MDT is very good. They already have a copy of our study. I've talked to them about making sure that some of the Fifth Street intersection recommendations are included in any of their signal upgrades for that project. The other thing the city did request, based on some incidents we had last winter with Interstate I-90 being shut down and all the traffic being directed through our city, that we requested they do a corridor study specific to Livingston. And so there's a lot of moving parts with transportation planning and studying in Livingston right now. And I just want to make sure you understand all the moving parts and how they're interrelated.
So with those moving parts then, if they're doing a corridor study, when would we expect to see that information?
You know, we'll find out here at the next TCC meeting, because that'll be
Which is when?
The third Wednesday of October.
Because it seems the two kind of maybe need to go
They will.
hand in hand.
The corridor study really is looking at that end to end. They have some problems internally with some communications between regions since we fall in the middle. So that's really the main part of it. I don't think they're looking at infrastructure as much in that one.
They'll do traffic counts.
Yeah, they'll do some of it, and it'll be useful for us, but they're not really doing like a design on any changes to it.
I was just thinking, because if we're looking at the study and how we're improving the flow of the traffic, then with those situations when they close down the interstate, you know, that's where in my mind it would, you know, if we had a one-way running east-west between 7th and say B Street, you know, that would really definitely help with the traffic congestion coming out the two intersections and running into each other in the center of town. I just don't know if that would be where I was going, is if that's part of their study with the corridor, it would maybe affect what we have seen here.
We'll make sure that, and we do, and they've done a great job of coordinating that information to make sure that we're not at cross purposes. We certainly don't want to be making an improvement that they're going to change when they come through with their corridor study. So we definitely will make sure that's synced up and that we're following their lead as far as park goes with our inputs.
That was another reason why Second and Park was kind of left to the end of the downtown PER, was because we knew that it was going to take some time for the, well, B Street and Main Street Park have already been done. So we knew it was going to take some time before that information became available. So that's kind of why we phased that PER the way we did. Another couple things, Shannon touched on this a little bit, you know, when we originally put the proposal together for this traffic master plan, we had only had enough money to do traffic counts on either 5 or 7 intersections, and the MDT providing those cameras was fantastic because, and Matt putting them all on saved a huge amount of cost. So we were able to actually do the counts on 33 intersections, which for a town like this size is a significant amount of data, which was extremely helpful. And you touched upon, you know, concern about the fact that that data was collected during the winter months, and we recognized that at the time that we were doing the study as well. And what we did is Bob's factored in some adjustments in the calculations to take into account that. And also we did do some counts in the summer to help correlate those to make sure that we were seeing, you know, that the information that went into the study accounted for seasonal traffic that you would expect during the summer. So we did factor that in. Part of the timing issue that we were getting into at the time was, you know, we wanted to kind of get this stuff out here so that we could look at, you know, before we go and drop the next big chunk of money on the CIP project downtown. So, anyway, just a couple clarification points for you there. Also, I'm gonna let Bob field most of the questions on the transportation study here, but by changing Main Street to a one-way, we increased the number, and diagonal parking, we increased the parking spots. That's a possibility up to 160 spots. So that's, as Bob says, that's like a 4-story parking garage. So that's a significant increase in parking if we were to do that. Another point of clarification is this, the previous study back in 2000, I think, talked about changing Second Street into a one-way. This one is a two-way street. You can not a one-way on Second Street. Ultimately, just, you know, one other point of clarification is, as we were talking about traffic signal at Second and Park Street, that is an ultimate MDT decision, and that is generally driven by a series of warrants. Bob can speak more intelligently about the warrants on traffic, and that intersection has met the warrants for a traffic light now for over 17 years. So, not to say, you know. So anyway, there's another thing, and you know, there's also some of the items that are in this report. These are, you know, there's what's best for traffic, and there's what's best for safety, and then there's, you know, still what the town wants, right? You know, for example, just because it's in this report does not mean that the town is forced to accept everything that's in this report. Like, one of the things that, you know, that we talk about in this report is curb bulbs. And I can tell you that, there has been extensive conversations in this town about curb bulbs. There's no doubt about it, the curb bulbs increase pedestrian safety, but there's also a consideration that needs to be given to as somebody mentioned, the integrity of downtown and the historical preservation of your great downtown, and also of what the citizens want. So while that, as engineers, we're number crunchers, we're, black and white, we tend to be, that's some of that gray area that we need to consider. So just to get it out there, just because it's in here doesn't mean you absolutely have to do it. There are recommendations that can be vetted out, but anyway, with that, I'll
say one more thank you before I give it to Bob. So I know Commissioner Hoagland and Commissioner Friedman have been real concerned about pedestrian safety on Calendar Street. One thing I want to give a big thanks to our street foreman, Craig Hahn. Anybody that drives along Calendar Street now can see that we've painted all the curves back from the crosswalk intersections at least 20 to 30 feet in all directions. We put a larger focus on making sure that the sight distance at intersections is maintained, and we hope to reap the benefits of safety through that. So that was another recommendation in the report that we're going to take very seriously from the city administrative standpoint.
And lastly, there is some information on the corridor, the Calendar corridor. Bob did a nice job on talking about that, and that does kind of lead into a kind of a parallel route to Park. So I'll let Bob talk.
Yeah, the parallel route is actually one of the concepts presented in the year 2000 transportation study as a couplet with the highway, Park Street and Calendar Street. That went over like a lead balloon, as much of the other things that were recommended in that study. So this study was a little bit different from the original study. The original study had Park County and the city of Livingston. This one was focused on the city of Livingston and the sufficiency of the street system, and as well as pedestrian bike system. So we approached it in that direction. One thing to remember, it is a planning document, only a planning document. What it does is provide all of the data that you can use to say, this is what we want, and here's the data that says we can do it this way. And conversely, this is the data, and we don't want to do it that way, and this is a result of that. So, much of the stuff has been already discussed. I guess I would just like to answer questions if you have those.
Bob, would you mind, there was a couple concerns brought up by citizens. I know you were taking some notes.
Yes.
Do you want to address those?
Well, one of the comments was the one-way couplet with 2nd Street, which was not planned to be a couplet. It's just a one-way street. Main Street would be essentially an angled parking lot, accommodating pedestrians, bikes, and parked cars. And it would go from Park Street to Clark Street, but 2nd Street would remain a two-way street. We did the analysis to find out how the traffic would be redistributed if that were the case. And we gave the volumes and did the analysis for the traffic signal at 2nd. So that information is available to the state to review. And let's see, what is it? I'm not sure. Oh, the seasonal factors. Yeah, I used very conservative seasonal factors for the traffic counts we took in. And in July we counted 2 or 3 more intersections, and I compared those to the actual factored counts that I used for the analysis. And I found out that my factored seasonal counts were actually higher than the summer counts that we did in July. So our factored or design hour volumes in this report are conservative, if anything else.
Great. Are there any other points of clarification from the commission? Any other questions at all? We do understand that this is just a planning document. It's not it's not part of our CIP or ER process right at the moment. It's for discussion. And that if we accept it tonight, we're accepting it in that regard. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say that we're hoping to make some pretty fast moves on the CIP here pretty soon, so I'm sure we will be back pretty quick to make sure that, especially the stuff centered around Main Street, if there was interest in doing that, it's gonna be coming in quick.
Right. One thing I'd like to mention on Main Street is, I think originally, or at some point in its history, it was all angled parking. Does anyone have any historic information on that? Oh, you do, Commissioner Sandberg.
It was always growing up, it was angled parking on both sides.
So that's
With two-way.
the two-way.
But those are Model T.
Or some buggies. And I didn't read that issue in the study, but does that make it safer going one way?
Yes, there was, it's really not enough room for angle parking both sides and two-way traffic. But if you have parking both sides, a one-way street allows a 12-foot lane in the middle and 6-foot bike lanes on either side of the vehicle.
Okay. Now, I was noticing in the study that there is some information about accidents on Main Street.
Yeah.
And was there something about, I just can't remember the exact, is it most of the accidents are when people are backing out of the angled parking lot?
Or going down the street and making a U-turn in the middle of the street to gain space going in the wrong direction.
So doing illegal things?
Yes.
It's legal.
Make a U-turn?
To get the parking spot.
Oh. But it's not legal to hit another car, right? Okay, just want to clarify that.
I just want to hope it's legal because they're doing it all the time.
We'll get you an official interpretation.
That'd be great.
So, Commissioner Semper?
So what, and you guys are the experts, but did you look at perhaps, as opposed to stoplights, doing no left-hand turns on and off of Park between 7th and B, maybe? Or is that just a bad idea? No left turns on or off Park Street? So, or off.
Well, at all of the streets?
No, just say a section of 6 blocks, maybe.
So someone that had to go 6 blocks out of the way, they would go to a traffic signal B and make a left turn.
Or 5th.
Not many people will do it.
Okay.
You'd have to physically prevent that left turn, or else the sign doesn't tell anybody anything. So you make people criminals. They just do it anyway.
I know some communities like have them posted, like say, I'm thinking Missoula and Billings, certain time frames during the day. So it's not all the time, but and I realize it would be difficult to enforce.
Yeah.
But thinking again of that 5-month tourist season, it's very difficult if you're coming off of Park or 2nd, trying to make a left turn. I mean, Main or 2nd, trying to make a left turn onto Park, due to also the lack of visibility with cars being parked on Park Street. So.
That's why the signal second would be so nice. We have Western Crossing plus left turn move, south left turn move on Park Street.
Can I ask you a question? We didn't actually look at that
Okay.
option.
I was just curious. And then it seems too throughout the study that Shannon touched on this, that a common theme is setbacks and foliage and those type of items. And do we currently have, say on Park Street and I guess I should just ask, what is the required setback by state now? Is it 20 feet?
An approach to a stop sign is 30 foot from the curb radius, and on the departure side of the intersection is 20 foot from the curb radius.
Okay. And so that's what we have on Park at each intersection?
Are you talking for the no parking zones?
Mhm.
Yeah, same thing, but correctly.
Oh, so okay, that's a state
That's the
responsibility
state
again.
responsibility. And that's what we did on calendar. That's exactly the criteria we used to paint the curves on calendar. However, it's up to MDT on the highway there. And I think they did.
We actually increased it in 25 in some areas.
I know what we did in calendar. I'm not an expert on Park Street.
No, that's what I meant.
And we certainly can bring that up at the next TCC meeting to their maintenance supervisor. That's something that.
I'd have to look at it. I think they have them on most of the curves, but we'll double check it. Just ask them.
The parking restrictions increase as the speed on the street increases. So
And then back on, you had said with the angled parking on Main Street, how many, I think you said it was 160 compared to how many spots we have now?
I can't remember, I think it's in the neighborhood of 50, something like that.
So it would almost triple the parking availability.
Double check the original.
And with that proposal, it wouldn't be changing the width of the streets at all.
No.
Everything in the sidewalks would maintain the same, which is, okay.
The only changes would be the fallouts.
Would we have to have those?
We wouldn't have to have them, but they're currently in the design on it.
They're in the study.
Yeah, I think I would need to hear more information from community members, I think, on that project. It's kind of interesting that I hear from so many of the community members the lack of parking downtown, and nobody has a solution, but when you provide one, they don't like it either. So, which I've already have heard from a lot of people, so I'm not sure what the answer is then. But, thank you.
Welcome. I did want to let you know that after the new year, there'll be a vacancy in the Transportation Committee. If you're interested.
Do you meet when I can attend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's in the day. You'll have to take time off work and lose your wages.
Yeah. No.
But it's a very, I think it was alluded to, that they're been going to those for 7.5 years now. They're very cooperative. I've never seen a community so cooperative with the community. And they've done an amazing amount of work in Livingston. Beautiful work. If you love, streets and curbs and signals and stuff like that.
That's infrastructure is an important part of the community.
Plus they put in Veterans Bridge.
Mhm.
With the signal there at 7th Street. That was all, state money to get that done. So anyway, is there any other questions for the gentleman here tonight? Otherwise, we can, take a motion to accept this document as a temporary planning document or a planning document. Commissioner Hoagland?
I've waited, I don't know if I have so many questions for you guys, that might be more statements. I've waited a long time for this. I'm very excited about the results and just giving us information and answering some of the concerns that I know many of us on here, at least the three at this table, for the past 4 years have, or more, have been stating. So I appreciate having some answers, especially to, in particular to calendar and our concerns as citizens and representing citizens, that that has been a place that people have been talking to us. And so I appreciate that. Now, I did wonder, one question, I guess, is that a lot of this studies focus, and I read through and marked all my little thoughts and, you know, highlights and such, but most of the focus of the study was near or close to park. Correct? Okay, so some of our questions that we have in relationship to other areas of the community, I guess administration and Shannon and anyone, what do we have? How do we deal with those areas? If we don't have an answer through a study or an earlier study or the MDT study that potentially will come up, and probably discuss some of the same things that we have in here and or answer, and I think which is great to have it, you know, reiterated or however but there's some other areas of the community that aren't addressed, and not that I'm not appreciating this, because I really am, and especially the calendar plan that could be potentially brought to us at a future date. So what do you think on that?
It all comes down to money, unfortunately. I would have loved to have had a full-blown traffic study. We're talking over $100,000. This report was a little less, or right around $40,000. If you look on figure 2, we tried to collect data in pretty, in various areas of town. Certainly, we wanted to address the developments out in the Star Edition and collect some information at some of the major intersections there. You know, with Northtown subdivision coming in, out in your Ridgeview Trails in that area, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, congestion at the underpass. So we did get that information, and certainly this is a really good baseline project, so we can actually focus in on other specific areas, like what's going to happen if the Star Edition's Discovery Vista and that northwest side of town continues to develop, and what are the impacts. You know, Bob and Keith, a lot of this document is a lot of numbers that are in spreadsheets and ran through models, and so all that's going to be interrelated if we want to look at a specific area in town.
You know, we did look at, you know, police records for where accidents are occurring as well. And of course, most of the cars are around park because that's your main thoroughfare. So that's where most of our accidents and stuff occurs as well. But we did, yeah, we, obviously there's if you look at the red dots of where we did everything, there's some areas that have the, obviously the most of them are centered around downtown park and whatnot, but you know, we did go out and look at a couple other intersections. I think maybe some by the schools.
And the thing is we think as a community we've been committing on fixing the downtown up over the next 12 years, and we wanted to make sure that we had the best information as far as for transportation planning for that corridor. So it really took a precedence to make sure that we're spending the $12 million over the next 12 years or whatever we decide as a community that we're spending that wisely.
I appreciate that. So I'll bring us back a little bit historically, and from the beginning of my conversations with the former administration about the traffic issue or issues is that they, as an administration, were not comfortable making decisions because we didn't have enough information to make that decision. So just saying, well, think that this area could use some signage, for example, or we think that this intersection might have some problems. We know that the accidents are up, but we didn't feel comfortable. So I'm just paraphrasing. Changing things in relationship, or changing signage to accommodate those concerns because we didn't have a study. So my concern then is, how do we now see it? Are we only going to be able to focus on these areas because of this study, or are we still able to think about the bigger picture of our community and the safety?
So, well, most of the focus of the study was downtown. They did a good job of connecting the entire city. There's a good set of data. There's a nice framework which we can make decisions in. I mean, obviously, there's better information in some areas than others, but those were the focus areas, and I think that's appropriate. But that doesn't mean that we can't make decisions. If there's other areas we're concerned about, speeding through, Sacagawea Park or other areas like that, we can certainly address those. We can certainly address those within the framework of the current study. I'm comfortable that we can make holistic decisions for the entire city based off the information we have.
That's what I wanted to do. Well, and there is even discussions that have been brought to me, or concerns about the old hospital area has signage that doesn't make sense as much now because we don't have ambulances coming in and out. But I noticed that's not here. Like, I think there's, I'm trying to remember which street. It's either on Crawford and 12th or something, 13th, something. But there's a stop sign kind of in the middle of, like, you're driving and people are concerned that now, why is that stop sign there? Which is normally, it's the opposite. We want stop signs put in. Now people are saying we might want this one taken out because it seems like it's not the right place, I guess.
I think this document allows us to look at each one of those individual cases on a case-by-case basis. So, we want to do a comprehensive study citywide. I think we've accomplished that. But if there are specific areas, obviously notifying the administration, and we can have now, Keith and Bob look at that, provide their engineering expertise and a recommendation on how to address each situation individually. We get a lot of requests in Public Works to just arbitrarily put up stop signs. And, I think Bob could attest that just going out and arbitrarily putting up stop signs is not in the best interest of a municipality. And when you look at the crash rates here, most of the accidents are actually at controlled intersections. Our uncontrolled intersections, while they might be scary at times, are actually safer if everybody understands what the rules of an uncontrolled intersection are. So we get a lot of requests for that. Certainly, this summer's we've really focused on making sure that sight distances and intersections have been adhered to, and really getting a lot of people upset because there were a lot of parking spaces that were painted now, no parking in and around town. But the ultimate goal is to do things per the MUTCD and to increase awareness and safety for our pedestrian and bicyclists in town, because it is important. They are an important facet of mode of transportation. So.
Yeah, Shannon makes an important point. Is that sometimes more is less. In that there's actually been studies done on pedestrian crossings when they're painted. There's more pedestrian automobile encounters in the crosswalks because the pedestrian feels safer. They feel like they're protected in the crosswalk, and so they don't watch as well, and they tend to get hit by cars more often in the controlled painted crosswalks than they do in an uncontrolled intersection. I think that to a degree there's been some studies that have shown that same thing with the uncontrolled intersections. It's when somebody feels like, hey, they have the stop sign, so I don't have to look. They go through, and then the guy that misses the stop sign, that's how, So it's interesting is that in some of those things, the more is less. And what that requires is an interactive participation between us and the administration and the community is like, hey, we have a problem here, and then we can look at it and tell you what we think can help that problem. But sometimes, we rely on the police reports and stuff to kind of be the backbone of some of these because those are the documented cases. But if there's an area of town that is concerning, we definitely can add into this.
Like the culture of all streets going north-south are through streets.
Right,
That's-
people get used to that.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
it's a cultural thing. I mean, everyone, the day we bought our house here, the realtor said, oh, that's how it is. Calendar's a through street.
We're working on some education programs.
Yeah, I got a ticket for it.
That's a good
I was
education.
educated real quick early on when in 91.
So then my final statement, I guess, or question is that, so we as a city and a commission plan to move forward with rethinking how our streets are dealt with. Would that be a yes or?
Absolutely.
Okay. Including rethinking where signage is good or bad. Potentially having to spend some money in certain areas, including the downtown and such, or River Drive, if it was, I know Shannon, you brought up the ball outs, is that how we say it? The ball outs. Curb balls, for years as something to slow down traffic on River Drive or near Secretariat. So then one last question is, so you had mentioned that, community members aren't always happy. So one of the things that is recommended throughout this study is cutting of trees and shrubs and clearing. Has that started some or how is it going?
It has started, and it's certainly something that I want to engage the tree board with. And if we need to take a serious look at our city code or enforce our city code, then that's what we're gonna have to do. But there are a lot of trees that are in that sight distance that need to ultimately go.
Or be trimmed at least?
Is there any other questions or clarification from the commission? All right. Well, is there a motion from the commission, first of all, to accept this study?
I'll make a motion to accept action item C, the traffic study.
Is there a second? Second. So that's a motion by Commissioner Vogland, second by Commissioner Friedman. Any discussion? May we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes?
Commissioner Hopper,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Silver.
Four. And now, Kim, thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for all the information you provided us. Is there a motion from the commission to direct the administration to look at the costs, engage our engineers to look at the costs to make Main Street a one-way with angled parking?
Tell me, we're looking for a motion, right?
Looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to
Direct the administration.
direct the administration as to the cost of Main Street parking as laid out in our current study.
I'll second.
So any discussion on that? Commissioner Sandberg?
Why does that require a motion? And not just an administrative directive?
It does, I'm not sure it requires a motion, but I'm saying, motion. You can go ahead.
Okay. I just think in the past we've just.
Doesn't require a motion, but I wanted to get it going, so we could get it done.
One question.
Okay.
So would this be the only option that we would price out and look at as a possibility, or are there some other options?
The study already gives a lot of prices involved with the work. The difference with this one is we kind of already have the PDR that shows, hey, this is what it's gonna cost. So this would be incorporating this, so it's gonna be different than the cost in the study, because if we incorporate it with the work we're already doing, it's not gonna cost that much extra.
To be nominal.
Yeah, it'll be nominal, or it may even save some money in the fact that if you do a wall out, you have a lot further distance to make your ADA grade, where currently we're gonna have to build the street up because of the two-step curve. If you did a bulb out, you could actually then have a longer distance to meet that grade. You may not need to build the street up. So there's some cost savings that could be realized by doing it this way. So it's really just a matter of how does it incorporate in with our current ADA requirements, our road and sidewalks, still meet the requirements for having the light posts that aren't light posts to hang banners from. Portals, you have the portals. And just really just make sure that we look at this prior to going out for bid so that we understand what the additional cost would be, or if there's any cost savings. But all the rest of the projects are pretty much standalone, and they already have prices associated with them. My goal is to actually, through an interactive process, sit down and rank order the projects, say, hey, this is the most important one we think needs to be done now, or this is the cheapest one that we think we can do right now, and actually have a list that we can then add to the CIP and say, hey, these are the long-term projects that we'd like to do for traffic and Livingston. This is the order we'd like to do them. This is the timeframe we think we're funding.
Well, when that budget or price out comes to us, I would love to see that kind of comparison that you just said. And I know that most likely will be in there, but I'd like to state that because I think that helps for the community to understand as well. If you are dealing with the street, like actually raising the street, which when you look at it, you can see why, right? That what are the impacts financially to that project because of it, or when you don't have to. So I like that. I'd like to see it too.
Commissioner Sandberg?
Can the bid, if you got your, what were we asking you to do to get an idea of cost?
Yeah, just to engage TD&H to incorporate, to give us an option of what it would cost to incorporate the study changes into the downtown streets league shop.
Okay.
So you have both options and look at them and compare.
Would it be a way though to get those costs? I'm just throwing that out there in advance instead of having to ask them to be able to look at the numbers, but breaking out some of the components that maybe the community wouldn't be so excited about, like the bump outs on the corners or those type of things. So if we came down to a deliberation on whether or not we were going to do this and what it was actually going to look like, we would easily be able to look at some of the components and the cost, whether or not we added those.
Yeah, we can see what they can break out, and I think that's appropriate. And really, where it'll come down, where the rubber's going to meet the road is when we actually look at going out for bid and then defining what that request, what the request for proposal is going to look like. And then that's where we can actually fine tune it and say, okay, this is what we're asking for. And I think we have some opportunities to go over that prior to putting it out. We may need a couple more meetings. We may want to, actually want to hold a special meeting just on this topic so that people can get their information and we can speak specifically to the details.
Sure, thank you.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Just to add that I still want to see these bids go out in a timely fashion, for downtown. Hopefully, we're still looking at November, correct? Or
December.
Huh?
December.
Okay. Well, we can start construction in January. We'll be good. All right, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Chairperson Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Brady,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Or
Motion passes. All right. Thank you very much for a lively meeting. Sitting down, your comments.
We're in 2 hours, so I can actually make some comments to them.
Okay.
Actually, I just have one request of the administration, or sorry, of the commission. The administration would like to schedule a closed session for members available to do both litigation updates and personnel issues. So if there's a time that works, possibly next Tuesday, or we schedule.
In the evening, I'm assuming?
Probably. to your convenience.
So that would be October 10th.
Yes. Or any other time.
Anyone have any problem meeting October 10th?
What time?
What time would be preferable for you now?
Well, I have a 7 o'clock meeting that night. No, on Tuesday, no, okay.
Commissioner Sandberg?
I'm trying to think why that day rings a bell, I think, on the time. Oh, no. Yes, I can do it in the evening, sorry.
Okay.
And that remember the way.
So there's 5:30, 6 o'clock work? What works best for everyone?
I can do 5:30.
5:30? How about you? 5:30? Okay. 5:30 on October 10th.
It's our easiest scheduled meeting ever. Never works like that.
Agreed on one. At the first round.
Is there other comments? That's all I have. That's all you have? Okay, great. Commissioner Sandberg?
Yeah, I think, we received a email from a concerned citizen regarding the knapweed on the Northside Hill. And I know that through our budget discussions that we are implementing a new program and enforcing it and actually dedicating personnel to the noxious weeds out there. So again, I think how's the best that we communicate to community members? I don't want them to just assume, do we need to each reply to them individually? Do we have a point person that responds, or what are the suggestions of how we communicate with the community members when they have concerns such as those?
Well, just generally, there's anything formal. If you feel that you have information that you can relay on to someone, I think they'd like to hear from the commission. I think they want to hear from the commission because, they voted us in and we're their representatives. That particular person I've already engaged. I sent them an email. I think that the other thing is really in that particular case, to send them to the administration, because the administration can direct them to the right place so that they can get the information about what we can possibly do right now and what our plans are for the future as far as enhancing that program.
Okay. And is it too much, and I'm being serious, too much to ask, because sometimes I receive questions I don't know the answer to, and I direct them to the administration, and I'm sure you're dealing with them, but could we, if I forward you messages and you reply to the person, can you CC us just so we know where the process on the response to the community member?
Sure, would you like as a group or?
I think if somebody just contacts me individually and I send you, I think it's fine, just reply back. I just am trying to, myself, when I see that person on the street, if
Have you heard anything?
just to
What's
verify
going on with that thing?
just confirmation that there is they've just been acknowledged, I guess. And I know you're extremely busy, and I don't know if you actually have a specific person on staff that deals with those type of topics, or if you take it all on yourself. Okay. And I guess I just don't want to add burden to the already process. Okay. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Hey, for once, I can do something. At the latest 911 communications meeting, our staffing in dispatch, I'm sure you're aware of it, right? Okay. And we have 2 out, 2 restricted, it's 40, and we're really looking at our alternate needs are 10 versus 8 versus 10 that we should have.
So
Dispatch.
with current commitment level, so fire, ambulance, sheriff's office, search and rescue. 8 is where we stand, is what we need, but we need 8 full-time, obviously.
Right.
So we're gonna have to figure out how to cover that. If we look at any increases in the sheriff's office or the police department, or if we were gonna add more fire, we probably won't. Then we need to look at subsequent increases to the dispatchers as well. So that's one of the big things that we're with the county on is if they see increased need for the level of dispatchers that they get to me ahead of time so that we can figure out the dispatcher staffing to coincide with any increases they have.
Yeah, because we can't even, 2 strict to 40 hours, can't even put them on overtime. And overtime, starts eating away at everybody, and not quite like the fire department, but. I reckon that was it. It was brought up again. It's constant thing, constant battle with dispatching. Finally get them out of this hole down here and up into a nice place. And now we don't have anybody to run it. So. All right, thank you. I yield.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Freeman? Yeah, this is a piece of trivia. I was with my wife last week. She had an operation at St. Vincent Hospital in Billings. And usually when my wife goes in the hospital, I stay right with her. And as part of that, they delivered a newspaper every morning. Life is all depending on where you live and the size of the area. So there was a discussion that they wanted to get better movement from Lockwood, which is outside of Billings. And the proposal was that they build an overpass. So that's tune of $75 million. It goes over the Yellowstone River. So it's all relative to what we're talking about here, but $75 million. That would take care of a lot of stuff.
You'll probably get it.
Yeah, so everything is relative. How you, Mr. Hoagland?
I too was going to ask about the NAPWEED situation, and one of the things that I would like an answer to, and I know that other people on like Parks and Trails would appreciate, is just knowing the plan and how do we implement now this new training, and for in the spring and in the future, what can the community do to help, and maybe a plan coming from the administration or from the city so that they can be involved as well. Because even with the training of picking the weeds or helping to get rid of them instead of just the spraying of, if Parks and Trails Committee, different organizations in town would volunteer and be part of that, it would be helpful. So having a plan. The other thing, Parks and Trails has invited Mike to come and coming this next meeting, correct? In October, am I right? And they're interested in being part of the conversation with, rethinking how north side access and different trails and trails that have been dreamt about in a sense, so Mike's gonna come and talk to that group, and then planning board, I'm just giving a little update because we don't always get updates, and that's your thing that you want. Planning board right now is talking about how to front load ordinances or plans for, or potential ordinances or plans for big box stores, and how to think them. And before it happens, versus after it happens. So they're just, it's one of the things that they are having conversations about at this point. It's at the beginning stages of it, but just trying to think before the curve. That's all I have.
Right? I kind of, yeah,
Then, I forgot
oh, yeah,
for next, for the evaluation.
right. Other than the, it kind of sparked the, question about committees. The State Park Committee has reached, is just about to, reach their $200,000 mark, which means that their, matching grants will bring them up to about 245, which is getting close to the, funds that we want to have in the bank. Get that started in the spring, so. Slowly but surely, inching the way up.
How far before you can?
275, I believe, isn't that correct?
We're shooting for 300.
300? But with the in-kind services, that adds a non-monetary value up to the 300.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So physical money, about 275.
And where are you? Where are you?
Well, once the matching grants come in, we'll be at 245. All right. The other thing is that we just want to check with, in 2 weeks, we have another commission meeting. Let's see, 1 week we have a executive meeting on legal, then we have 2 weeks, we have our regular meeting. And then the Tuesday after that, we have our first evaluation. And the only question I wanted to ask from the city attorney is, can the city commission meet in an executive session before the evaluation as a body to discuss the evaluation? No. And why not?
It's a public exercise, basically.
Okay, can you
It's up
check
to
on
my,
that?
yeah, I can check on it.
Yeah, please do.
Sure. It's up to my disclosure.
Well, we're just gonna meet as a body, previous to that,
Oh,
regarding, personnel. So, only thing is that we have to get that meeting probably an hour, half hour earlier. Can everyone make an hour, half hour earlier on that day? Which is, we had it scheduled for 6 o'clock.
And what would be the purpose of the meeting?
It's the 24th. 24th, yeah. Purpose is to discuss the evaluation prior to meeting out in the public with the city manager. Try to do it 5:30 or so.
I wouldn't be able to get an hour.
Half hour,
I can try.
so. Just let us know. Okay, great.
Maybe you're looking at 5:30 or 5.
Yeah. 5:30.
Yeah, we're scheduled at 6 now.
Yeah. That's all I had. Is there any public comment? Right up. I'll be back.
Okay, so after all of that, how about some good news? So, as you remember, I came up and spoke with you before about Coach USA being a new member for our community. And they are currently, the only holdup for running the new bus down to Gardner daily, 5 days a week, is it's the employee bus. It's a shuttle from Livingston to Gardner with 3 stops, is the right person to drive the bus. So they're currently doing at least 1 to 2 interviews per week. And the bus is ready to go. The route is already picked out. The ticketing situation is all in place. And this is a great thing moving forward for our community, to tie our communities together and moving forward. And the only way that Santerra, Yellowstone Forever, and all the other organizations in between were going to be a part of this was that they guaranteed that this wasn't just a temporary thing, that this was going to be a permanent move for us during the busy season and the winter season. So we're very happy for this to get started here soon. I'll be letting you know as soon as we're up and running, basically as soon as they get a driver and they're trained, which is they are paying fully for the training, then our bus will begin. The second bus is the Livingston Snow Coach, which we're so excited for. That starts on December 8th, which is the beginning date that the Bridger Bowl is looking to start and open if they have enough snow. So that'll be Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and all the marketing has gone out for that already. So I will keep y'all updated on it.
Very much. Margot?
There you go. Hi, Margot Kidder, 315 West Lewisdale. I have a feeling I'm going to really annoy you by bringing this up at the end of this meeting. I know it's been brought up before. I know you voted against it. So I might really piss you off, but I mean, annoy you. But, and for me, as a graduate of the counterculture and a peace activist and someone who when young loved her magic mushrooms, and you could get really good ones up Deep Creek in the cow patties, this is going to seem like a really strange request, because I must say, I used to refer to policemen as pigs. I am begging you to acknowledge that there is a methamphetamine epidemic in this town and that our police are overwhelmed. Their hands are tied to do a lot of things. The one detective, drug detective, and I believe it's Ted Barnes, is that correct? Yeah. Who desperately needs someone just to work, to do detective work on drugs. Our police are underpaid, overworked, not trained in the drug stuff. When I tell them certain things they did, I think, without letting me know, say to themselves, there's a batty old woman, that couldn't have happened. But when I talked to Detective Barnes, he knew exactly what I was talking about across the board. I have been a victim of this, partly of my own making. I promised the police I wouldn't try and save any more troubled kids, is what happened, because I would invite them into my house to take care of them, and they'd go back on drugs and steal me blind. But it is a real problem, and the number of people I've talked to when I bring up what I'd been through this year, and the police, thank God, got these two dealers out of my basement. They knew they were dealing in the basement and were so tied by red tape they couldn't come in and arrest them, which I just finally figured out. Meth heads do crazy stuff. I've never seen a drug do that to people. So I would describe the crazy stuff to these Livingston police who would kind of do one of those and do a check, but not quite get how crazy it was. I don't think. I could be wrong. I did promise them never to try and save any young people again. So that's my promise to them. They've been great. They've been kind. They've been supportive, but they don't have the manpower. They don't have the training in drugs. That's really, really important. I know more about methamphetamine addiction right now than I ever wanted to know. I'm going to be leaving this town for some time because it just so creeped me out. And what happens is this kids form gangs and they pass information on, and you get marked, it's called, I learned. And they know, oh, here's a house you can break into, and here's how, and here's what you can get. They do nutty stuff like steal a lot of stuff and then return it. And it turns out I learned from Ted Barnes, it's because they try and pawn it. And then what they can't pawn, they put back in your house. I mean, it's really crazy. It's really a problem. And it happens. It's happening a lot in not just our town, but I think the 7 counties around here that Detective Barnes is. So I'm begging you to reconsider coming up with the money. These guys aren't paid a ton. Coming up with the money to do something about this. It's a serious, serious problem. I mean, it's devastated me. Thank you so much.
I very much appreciate that. Was there one more public comment tonight? I saw a hand. Yes.
Liz Kern from the Press. I had a question about the closed session for litigation. Could you name the litigated cases?
I don't have them off the top of my head. It's going to be very similar to the last one. I'll send you an email.
I have a question about the personnel issue. Mostly just the level. Is if it's somebody pretty high up, that's of public interest. So this, the janitor staff, I don't care, but if it's, there's somebody with significant responsibility, I think the public needs to know. To give me an idea of the level.
Not really,
Why not?
not public information.
But I argue that if it's somebody of significant responsibility, it would be public information.
Okay, let me look at it and I'll get back to you.
And I think I want to object in advance to meeting in private before Mr. Carlos' evaluation, because he's already asked for time open.
Did you want?
It's my job.
His job, duly noted, and we'll let you know what we decide. By the end of the week.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved. For a second. Second. All in favor? Aye. This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is adjourned at 8:35.
Work on